So we're here. It is absolutely beautiful, and we're in Witset, in your nation, which is Wetsuweten Nation. Tell me who you are, and gosh, where we are.
I'm Hereditary Chief Na'Moks. I sit as the highest ranking chief of the Taiyu, and that is because not only do I have the name of Chief Na'Moks, I also caretake the name of Chief Police because it sits vacant and we're training somebody to lift that name. Where we are now is in our most important fishing site that we have within our 22,000 square kilometers of territory. As you can see, the river itself narrows down, so through here we'll get spring salmon, sockeye, pink salmon, the steelhead itself, and it all goes through here and out to the spawning beds. Right now it's called invisible migration, so there's millions of smolts heading out to the ocean to mature. They mature in Alaska waters, and then they come back home to spawn in the fall.
We're here to talk about pipelines, past, present, and possibly future. The political landscape right now of economic uncertainty, tariff threats, that seems to be pushing over to here in this nation and other indigenous nations in BC. Let's talk about that. I guess originally, decades ago, when the Northern Gateway Pipeline first was introduced and proposed, although it was pushed back, I think in 2016, all of the nations along the coast, many here in the Northwest, had, bound together to push against that pipeline. That isn't the case anymore. What happened?
Well, basically, it's the way they did the regulations and the government themselves, what they've changed. We always look at things, a holistic view. We look at everything from beginning to end. They break it up into chunks. So when Enbridge, the oil pipeline, was proposed to come through, right away we knew they wanted a corridor. No industry just wants one. They want everything, and that's exactly what they want. So we talk to everybody, everything from the Haida, the Tsimshian, coastal people, interior people. What concerns do you have? Because we know what ours are. This river here leads into one of the top 3 salmon producing rivers in Canada, Wetsuweten. It leads into the Skeena. That is the second largest salmon producing river in all of Canada, and this is what they're threatening. When they have that threat to our food security, who we are, then we have every right to join other nations that have the same concern, because industry has no heart, no soul. Money doesn't have heart, no soul. And government has now proven that they have no heart, no soul. They only look at the dollar bill. We don't need to look at the dollar bill. I know how to cook a fish. I don't know how to cook a dollar. Industry and government cook money. We don't.
Obviously LNG is very different from an oil pipeline. But then you start looking at the actual details. Do you think the political landscape shifted with LNG because of maybe how they sold it, in the sense of, LNG is natural, LNG is a cleaner fuel? Do you think that helped change people's minds?
Well, they control the narrative. Any kind of construction is destruction. They have to kill your waterways. They have to blow up mountains to put pipelines in. And when they talk about natural gas, the only place it's natural is when it's in the ground. It is unnatural the way they do it. They go into the fracking process, the amount of pollution that is included in there, the waste of water. They have to put affluent into the ground to pump it up. And then to get it not only in the pipes, but think about the very fact of all the emissions that they create throughout the process itself, to shipping to where it's going. All of that, they don't talk. They keep on saying foolish things like, oh, we need to get Asia off coal. Asia won't get off coal. It's the cheapest source they have. But what you can do is mitigate the damage overall. They're adding to it. They're not telling people that, in the overall process of liquefied natural gas, it is over 80 times more pollutant than coal is, because of the production, because of the shipping that is needed, because they have to freeze it to ship it and then thaw it out. All of that is not added to it. So it's the narrative that they have to convince the public they're doing something for the world when they're actually killing the planet. when they kill the climate, where are we as humans? Where's our voice in all this? Why in a so-called democratic country do we have money and industry directing us? And then they have a police state created to make sure that they get their way. Where's our voice in all of this? So when Canada says that this is green and they're greenwashing, when they're saying that we're going to help somebody, it's absolute lies. The only ones they're helping are the rich get richer. That's all.
Some have suggested that the shift wasn't due to changing values, but rather increasing pressure, marginalization, and a lack of viable alternatives. Do you agree with that?
Well, think about during COVID, what did Europe do? They relied more on the greener energies. They did more advancement in a 5-year period than they did for decades. And now they are leading the world. If you actually think about it, Asia is doing far better than Canada. And yet they're one of the most pollutant countries in the world. And yet they're doing better than Canada. Why didn't Canada focus on that? Rather than go for a resource which is limited. They're going for something that will run out. Why can't they put money into something that will last forever? We don't have to kill this planet just for the rich people. We don't have to kill this planet to make sure the market is viable. The market should be ourselves. The market should be listening to the real people. I drink out of this river. There's not many places in this world you could do that.
There's division with people, of course. You know, some want pipelines, some, of course, don't want pipelines. Do you think that helps the government and industry, like, or maybe it's a strategy almost to have people fighting?
Well, that's actually a great strategy, and it seems to work, where you can have people divided, one side or the other. To me, it's like having a flat earther come and have a conversation with me. It's when you have climate deniers saying, oh, the world is a perfect place while the world's on fire. Right now there's tornadoes, there's storms, everything throughout the world, and they won't take any kind of responsibility and point the finger at it. When you have people wanting to control, again, that narrative to get what they want and get us fighting amongst themselves, I won't fight with our people. You know, yes, there are people that sign, but you know, they're the minority. They are not the majority. You know, our system itself, say it's all inclusive. They pick and choose. And when they get somebody to sign on board, then they have the money to make that narrative louder than we do. But our truth will always win every time.
The Wetsuweten Hereditary Chiefs did not sign on to the Coastal GasLink pipeline. Why was that decision made?
We always look at the betterment of all. And we don't look at 5 years, 10 years, 50 years ahead. We have to think of hundreds of years ahead. Our chiefs and our elders always say, it's for our children, our grandchildren, and those yet to be born. And if you're just thinking about a monetary value that disappears, you're not thinking about those children. I often think about how my grandparents and my parents treated me when I was young. They wanted us to have a better world in what they grew up in because of all the oppression, everything that our parents and grandparents had to go. Well, that's what we want not only for our children, but yours as well. And in there, you have to make sure clean water, clean air. You have to make sure there are freedoms. You have to make sure there's a quality of life that everybody wants to look forward to. And when you're doing that, you're looking after the environment. You're looking after wildlife. You're looking after clean air and that water. That is a duty that comes with our names. When you get people that sign on for money, they are ignoring our natural law. And when Canada makes us criminals for following a law to look after this planet, who's the real criminal here?
Can you explain the difference between hereditary and elected governance? You know, how your governance structure works, and specifically when it comes to lands and resource projects?
Well, when we take on names, we take on responsibilities. The name I carry has been in our bloodline for thousands of years. When you take on that name, you have a duty to the land, air, water. You have a duty to the people and your culture, who you are, your identity, your history. In us, it's called Kanga. That is our story. This is where we come from. Our Yinta, our land, we don't own it. We are only caretakers. We are born to look after it. If we don't look after it, how's it going to look after us? Right now, it's been absolutely abused. Right now, it's not being taken care of properly. But why can't we take that responsibility that we're left with as human beings to make sure it's there? And when you talk about an elected government that was created by Canada, the whole sole purpose is they took us off our land, put us on little pieces of land, and said, you stay here. Meanwhile, they went after the resources. Now they switched the tables. Now they're saying this elected government that they created has authority on land so they could go out there and go after the resources again. Our law is hereditary, never changed. We were born to look after this land. We were born and raised to make sure what the laws are. And we have to make sure that the next generations know that. How are you supposed to look after your mother and expect her to look after you if you're abusing her, if you're ignoring her, if you're taking absolutely everything from her when she is there to look after you? That is a duty of the hereditary system. Our system will never go away, it'll never die. We are unceded, we are non-treaty. We've never signed one agreement with Canada or British Columbia saying that we give away our authority as Wet'suwet'en people to a government that wants to kill this planet. And we never will sign that. Take my word on that one.
Your hereditary system, your nation is still very strong. When forced, not to have your feasts, when Canada tried to force, different things onto you to not be who you are, you still kept your traditional systems.
You always have to think about what your parents, grandparents, and elders told you. You have to remember that love that they gave you. That same love should be reciprocated to their memory and the hard work they did. What they went through is unfathomable. What we're going through is unbelievable. We don't want that for the next generation. And the only way to make that difference is to remain strong, remain true to who you are, your culture, and tell your truth. We don't tell a lie when we say we're looking after this clean water for everybody. When we say we're working for the betterment of all. That's not a lie. The lie is there's a better world with a dollar bill. The lie is we'll take everything you have, kill it, and send it elsewhere, and leave you with nothing. That is the lie they're trying to teach the world right now. And I think the more that people understand that, the truer their hearts are, the stronger their voice is. And you have to do it together, because these industries and elected governments that believe in it are not going away, but they can be retrained. It's like a child. A bad child sometimes has to be trained. I have a true belief that politicians are like dirty diapers. They must be changed on a regular basis.
Sorry, yeah, that's a good analogy. I love that. Okay. What actually happens? Sorry to be laughing, but that's I can see that, yes. What actually happens when you say no to a project? Specifically, Wetsuwet'en has felt a huge amount of trauma for saying no, for standing up. Tell me about that.
For saying no and telling our truth, they criminalize us. They burnt down our homes. They come through our doors with axes and power saws. I've stepped outside and had snipers pointing their guns at wanting to kill you because you're saying no. That's not right. I'm the son of a Second World War veteran. He served throughout the Second World War to make sure we live in a democratic country. And I got to step outside and face guns? Our people have to be living in fear of men in uniform that are supposed to be protecting the public? Meanwhile, because their pension, I'm talking about Royal Canadian Mounted Police, is tied to these projects, that they are more worried about their pension than the very job they're hired to do? What they've done to us, they create arms of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to attack us. Year after year they come, they call it a raid. No, it's an invasion. They want to kill you. We're high chiefs. Number one, we will never be violent. But they set up so many situations where it would have been easy in a blink of an eye for them to open fire because they are trying to push you to that point. We're high chiefs. When we say no to something, we mean it, but we'll do it peacefully. But we are not going anywhere. They get to go home. This is home. We have every right to stand up for it. But not once were we violent. They try to make us criminal and say that we were instigating trouble. No, when somebody comes into your house, they want to burn it down, they want to shoot you. That's the problem. We're not a problem. We're the cure. We are the future to make sure clean air, clean water, and freedom and democracy lives because that is our law. But they won't follow the law. They won't even follow the Constitution of this country.
That brings us to KKR. I don't think a lot of people understand the playbook, the strategy. It's a global investment firm, and one of their partners is former CIA director and U.S. Army General David Petraeus. What should people understand about them and when they're involved in projects like this?
Well, he created a playbook when he was in the eastern countries, and about raiding, going in, killing, how to take over. He made one statement. He said, the leader of where we are right now is not the one with the most oil or money. It was the ones with the most attack helicopters. So violence is his answer to everything. So Canada started following that playbook. You could see it by the way the Royal Canadian Mounted Police created CIRG, Community Industry Response Group, now since relabeled as CRU, Critical Response Unit. But in that playbook, it says that you either buy them off. If they don't want money, then you use violence. We were hoping that Canada itself would realize that this is not Canada to be able to follow that, and yet they implemented it. When we talk to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, when they come to arrest us for being on the territory, we bring up UNDRIP, we bring up DRIPA, and they say it's only aspirational. We spent how many decades working on that? British Columbia is one of the first provinces to implement, will actually introduce DRIPA. I was in the legislation the day they did that with John Horgan when he was premier. Now they say it's only aspirational, and they have every right to burn us out, to arrest us, take our ladies, remove them from our children, and somehow that is right in their mind. But if you actually listen to real truth, they have to face the consequences one day of actually having to stand up for Canada, for the people, for humanity, for human rights, for a very future that we all want. I don't want to be breathing air out of a bottle. I don't even want to drink water out of a bottle. It's right there. Why would you have David Petraeus have their playbook and force us into what they think is what future is, just for a dollar bill? We give them an eviction notice. We went right to New York to their office and give it to them. They were not pleased, but I was extremely pleased that they can come onto our territory, threaten us, try to kill us, and yet I have every right to go to their office and give them a piece of paper saying that you are evicted, you have no right to be here. And all the chiefs and all the clans have said, no, this will not happen on our land.
CGL has been fined multiple times, nearly 1.4 million for environmental violations, including repeated failures to control erosion, sediment. This has threatened, of course, water quality, has impacted salmon. What does this tell you or tell us about the industry's commitment to environmental protection when they, when they tell you, this is our number one, we're going to be, we're going to ensure that everything is good, but they repeatedly had problems?
If you think about $1.4 million compared to the billions that they've invested, it's pocket change. So they get very minute fines actually for the amount of damage they do. It was a couple of years ago, I was in Switzerland, I was at the World Banks and I was listening to them and I had meetings with them. This one banker, he said there's a program out there and he wrote a book on it. It's called The Green Swan. He said for every dollar you put into an industry, put $1 aside to fix it. And keep it that way all the way through. That way if they get damages happening, they got to pay dollar for dollar. They managed to pay a penny for every million and they get away with it. And British Columbia allows it, Canada allows it. The fines themselves are very minute compared to the amount of damage that they do. So let's say in 10 years they want to do mitigation. How many billions and trillions do they have to do to mitigate when they should have done it at the front end to make sure it was safe before they even started?
Wild salmon is so important for your nation, many nations throughout BC. Maybe explain to people why that is. I don't think people understand. It's food security. It's so many things. Help us understand.
It's hard to understand how important, unless you look at the context of how many places on earth actually have the quality of salmon that we do. Many of it is actually produced. Think about fish farms, the damage they do. Here we get it wild. It goes out to the ocean, comes home to us. All we have to do is look after it. So it's more than a food source. It's so important to us. But when we're working on our salmon, when we're catching our salmon, we're sharing the stories of our elders. We're talking about our history. When we're cutting it up and getting it ready either for jarring or go into it, we're talking about the uncles, the aunties, the great-grandmas that worked on it, how they did it, how they made sure that it was there. Then we also talk about how can we make sure that every 3, 4, and 5 year cycle, it comes back. You're always planning for that next generation, not only of the salmon, but our people. But you share that history of how we got to where we are today. And then you get this here rude awakening of staring down the barrel of a gun, then they call it reconciliation, saying your history, you as humans, you don't matter. And yet our culture is there, our history is there, our stories are there, our kungas there, our songs are there, and it's all tied together. We say that the salmon are in the trees, and that's because the DNA of that salmon is in the soil and the water. The plants and trees have it in it. It's everywhere, and it's clean, it's pure, it's medicine, it's powerful. And the more they can take that away from you, the lesser you are as humans. Then you lose who you are. You lose your focus of where you come from, and you forget about the children to come.
Governments often point to pipelines and resource extraction as examples of economic reconciliation. And I've definitely heard you in interviews before explain, but that's what they tell the public often, that this is good, it's economic reconciliation, people are happy, Indigenous people are happy, this is what they want. But that's not actually entirely true at all. What would real economic reconciliation look like?
Well, to me, economic reconciliation is just another word for bribery. That's all it is. In the past, they've had other sources, they call it own source revenue, where we would make our own money. But then when it comes to education, health, or even infrastructure, they said, you spend your own money that you made first, then we'll assist. And yet they have a fiduciary duty to us, because they've taken resources off our land ever since contact. Reconciliation when it comes to finance, how could you reconcile something when we've done nothing wrong? To reconcile is basically two guilty parties. What did we do wrong except be born Indigenous, except be born Wetsuweten, except to look after these lands, air, waters for thousands? Is that wrong? And yet we have to reconcile with them removing everything, putting a price tag on everything, and then we have to buy it back. And then they say, you know what, we'll give you a few pennies, we'll keep the billions, you'll get some pennies. Well, we'll call that economic reconciliation, because we'll make your future stronger for a very limited few, not for everybody. So the very idea of economic reconciliation is not a truth, it's not a fact, and it's not a reality. Reconciliation means when they come to us and say, what did they do wrong and how could we fix it? How many times has government come to us and said, I'm sorry? I always question, are they truly sorry, or are they sorry they got caught? So reconciliation should start with that. Don't tell me you're sorry, fix what you did. If you want to help us, work with us. Don't take, and then try to tell us, you know better than us? On our territory, Europeans have only been here for less than 150 years. We managed to look after for thousands upon thousands of years. Now we get economic reconciliation to buy us out and make us think that we need to buy something that'll last a few years rather than something that could last thousands of years.
The risks don't, or I guess it's the risks versus the rewards. And that's a big thing to think about. I remember once you and I were speaking, and we were talking about the jobs oh, there's jobs from pipelines, you know. But you had said, Lori, there's not all of these jobs. There's short-term jobs. There's a lot of people that are brought in to do the jobs. Maybe explain to me about that.
Well, when they did Coastal GasLink, the jobs lasted 2 years. So everybody's thinking, oh yeah, these jobs are going to last forever. So they go and buy new trucks, build themselves homes. Well, they're all going to lose that now because the jobs are short term. Those contractors they brought in by the thousands, the very equipment that was here is now in Mexico. Those are all gone. And yet we're left with the mess. We're left with a drug problem. We're left with all the infrastructure that had all the pressures put on it from these people. They fly in every 2 weeks, fly out every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. They have no connection to the land or the people or the area itself. So there was pressures health-wise, infrastructure, the social impacts were huge. We're going to have to, well, we are working very hard to try to fix our people because of the damage that was done. They just got to go on. They have no sense of responsibility or duty to where they go except destroy and take off. We're only a paycheck to them. We're only a tick in a little box to them. We're always left with a mess every time. Whether it's logging, whether it's mining, whether it's pipelines, they come in, they make the mess, they go home. We're left with the damage. And the government is not helping at all. They're making it worse by wanting more gone, by doing more damage. I don't want to be going to the government sun tanning my palm when I should have everything right there. All we got to do is look after it. That's all we got to do.
My understanding is, that influx of people, the workers coming, the ones that aren't going back and forth, but they have, driven up food prices, driven up housing prices. There's strain on the healthcare system. I think, that's big. And if there's more pipelines maybe to come through, what's that going to look like?
Well, you just said it. The social impacts we're left with are immeasurable. They're not even doing proper studies on it. And now that they have more proposed pipelines, it won't be the same people. So you're going to get the same Wild West attitude. Come in, take. No consciousness about what they do, just destroy and go elsewhere. Because they know they're leaving. But the ones that are really going to hurt are the people that live here. I'm not just talking about Indigenous people, I'm talking about all people. And then the government, we're going to make all this revenue. They give so many incentives to the oil and gas industry itself. It is costing the British Columbia and Canadian public the money. Look at the hydro they're using. Oh yeah, we're going to build all these dams and we'll be able to power all these hundreds of thousands of homes. Why don't they tell them that most of that power is going to these industries? And it is the public paying for it. It's not industry paying for it. When you get your utility bill, you're paying for it.
The Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Pipeline, PRGT, that is proposed to connect to the Sea Lisms LNG floating terminal is now facing multiple legal challenges, including concerns about outdated environmental assessments and lack of meaningful consultation. Why do you think these issues continue to surface? And what does that say about how these projects are approved or pushed forward?
Well, it just proves again that our politicians have the spine of a jellyfish. They will not stand up for the very people they're supposed to stand up for. They'll cave into industry every time. To look at the financial outlook and pressures put, I'll use the United States as an example. You got that orange fellow with tiny hands, good old Ronald McDonald, T-Rump there, actually telling the world this is what you need to do, otherwise you're going to go broke. We don't have to go broke. We just have to protect what we have. If we give everything away at their market value, what have we got for that next generation? Then they open up the door for more people to put that same pressure on Canada again. Canada could be well looked after if our politicians would gather the spine that they need to, toughen up the environmental laws, not just fold every time and start rubber stamping things. Look at where they've done it before. Look at the damage they've done in other parts of Canada. Look at Alberta. That used to be such a beautiful place. Now you got the tar sands there. They want that here. They want these rivers gone. They want to dam them. They're going to have to use more power, more hydro. Guess what? Oh, we didn't know at the time, but now we're going to kill your rivers and all your salmon because we need the power. We need that water to produce hydro so we can get a product that hasn't got the value we'll ever get from it and ship it away for somebody else.
Doesn't make sense. In light of recent tariff threats and economic uncertainties, we've seen a renewed push from various politicians, various levels of government, to revisit previously proposed projects. What implications does it have for Indigenous communities and environmental commitments if we start pushing through projects?
Well, there were reasons these projects were said no to. And now that they're laxing the environmental standards and basically giving industry their way and not listening to the public at all, there's no long-term planning. Like, I can't see what their long-term goal is except destruction of this planet. And the only way we can make the difference that is needed is people speaking up, being united, using that voice. Like I always say it, money doesn't have a heart and soul. It sure as hell doesn't have a conscience. But shouldn't our politicians have one? Shouldn't they be thinking of their children? Because everybody should understand that anything that happens to us will happen to them. We are the template. I've not seen the Royal Canadian Mounted Police being enacted the way they have for this extended amount of time as they have on us. And so that is the template they'll use. It'll become the norm, it'll become the standard. And our judicial system is not working currently because right now, let's say they ban us from going on the territory until you go to court. Well, then you don't go to court for 3 to 5 years and then the project's done. And yet we go to jail if we go back on our own land. We hunt, we fish, we trap. We have areas on our territory where we don't allow our people to go hunting because if they got a rifle to get a moose or a bear, then they're called armed and dangerous. And it's open season on us.
Wow. In your view, is BC and Canada living up to UNDRIP or BC living up to DRIPA?
Absolutely not. If you look at all sections of United Nations Declaration of Indigenous People, they're not at all. The United Nations written 3 letters to Canada and they've not responded once yet. And you'd think as a founding member they would. They'd be proud of their reputation, and they're not. You know, I think that the more the world understands that Canada is not this free and democratic country that is put on this pedestal, the better it is for the world. Because if Canada cannot be held accountable for what they sign onto and endorse, what is left for the future? You know, when you talk about human rights, sure, UNDRIP is Indigenous rights, but we're human too. They're trying to get the world to think that we're less than human. That way they can continue to do what they're doing. And they did that. You know, when they control that narrative and try to tell the world that we are less than human and we don't deserve to survive, to live, to thrive, then they win. The problem, I think, that Canada has right now is to continue that lie. Because the world will see the truth. And they have to be held accountable. And all they have to do is just let us live. Because what we do is better for everybody. But the more they do is worse for everybody because it's going to be the norm. And I was told 30 some odd years ago when I was up in the tar sands that the elders there at that time said, never take the lid off Pandora's box. You can't put it back on. And anything they're doing to us, they're doing to you. And look where we are today.
We're in a climate crisis. It's not 10
they don't
years
even,
from now, it's now.
They won't even call it a crisis. It's more of a situation to them. And they're trying to convince us that all the extractive damage that they're doing to this planet is not the cause. Oh, it was going to happen anyway. Yeah, well, maybe it was going to happen 10 million years from now. Not next year, not the year after. Every time they say, oh, we're going to do mitigation, or we're going to meet these here climate targets by 2030, by 2050, they'll be dropping 2080 on us next because they're removing all those targets because they haven't met the ones that they promised to. Think of the Paris Accord. Where is that today?
That brings me to another question. You know, we have the climate crisis unfolding around us all throughout the world. We have, you know, BC gets hotter and hotter, more wildfires every year. Sometimes across Canada we have wildfires. Is it frustrating, or does it surprise you that, I don't know, it seems like, you know, a few years ago everybody was promising like that they cared about climate change, but now we don't care? I think I'm shocked.
You got to think about how much they're dependent on the monetary system. That's the problem, right? Everybody think that the more money you have, that's going to cure things. Well, no, it's the damage you're doing to get that money. Why is there not a limit on looking at what the human itself relies on? I don't live on my bank account. I live on water, food, clean air. And that's what they're taking. And how are they ever going to fix something if they haven't even planned on it? They only plan on more damage. They only set their goals on what money they could get. They often talk about the deficit in Canada. What about the moral deficit in Canada? You know, when they say we have to make more money to pay a deficit that they created, we didn't create it. And yet we got to be the ones that pay the highest price for it. So the morality is gone. I really think that the democracy of this country is in such a wicked downhill slide that it'll take something quite shocking for them to realize there's a better way of doing things. Because if you think of the way that governments are going right now, they won't rely on the people, which means there is no democracy. Where's the end goal for them? Them to ultimately say, there's nothing left. Now we're going to be a poor country? When we got everything we need, we just have to look after it. But why on earth are we as individuals, we as humans, we who are in Canada, as the example, say no to something and they ignore it? And they know it's going to get worse. They won't tell us the truth about what they plan on in 50 years because they've only got a 2 and 4 year mandate. They're only good as long as their election holds them.
It is, I find it's crisis level. The, you know, the misinformation, the disinformation, you can feel the angst. And that's what I assume, and that's, you know, strategy, not just from the fossil fuel companies, but from people that have way more money than the rest of us. And I am worried.
Well, if you can control the media, you're controlling the thought process. You think about the human itself, we really don't have that big of an attention span. You look at something on the internet, 8 to 10 seconds, click, move on. But if that 8 to 10 seconds is only what they have out there, that's all you'll learn. We're even closing down the process of our education system. You know, banning books that talk about the environment, what we actually rely on every day. I was down in one of the eastern provinces where, like for their day school, they're issued puffers because they're in Chemical Valley. Even if they don't have breathing issues, they will get it, so they're issued it at their day school. Do I want that for the rest of Canada? Do I want it from up here? No. But that's where they think the world is. When we talked about us going to KKR, we did a tour of their building, and what they did is they have this underground world, and it's all blue skies, but all it is screens, and the water is provided for you because the world itself is unlivable, and that's what they think the future is. I'm not a mole. I'm a Wetsuweten. I'll live above ground. I'll be free, and I'll drink our water. They need to realize that all humanity needs that. The world is going to look to Canada because we are so blessed with so much clean water, but they need to look at it in a proper view, not take about how to learn to look after it, not just destroy. Our law says that. We're born that way. We've been this way. We'll continue to be this way. Number one should not be somebody's bank account. It should be, what do you need on your table? What do you need for your children? and what do you need for the future.
BC's proposed Bill 15 aims to fast-track infrastructure projects in response to U.S. tariff threats. Many, of course, are calling it, rollbacks on environmental protections, on Indigenous rights. Premier Eby says, "Oh no, I won't use that with LNG or pipelines," but people are worried. Indigenous leaders, Indigenous people are very worried about the wording, about what he's saying. Are you concerned?
Absolutely. You got to realize when Premier Eby was Attorney General for British Columbia, he's the one that signed the orders to attack us. Now, he wasn't voted in as Premier until the election happened. He was basically anointed because he did support pipelines. And he's not going to change. His wording may sound soft. We know they've already rubber stamped it. When they put bills forward that are going against the future, you know they've already made up their mind. Industry's already paid them to make up their mind. Do I think that they're going to be on our side? Absolutely not. They've already proven that.
With LNG Canada preparing to export its first shipments, we'll see major tanker traffic in the Douglas Channel. And what can that do? What does a disaster look like if something happened? What does that mean for marine life, whales?
Well, back in the day when the proposed Enbridge pipeline was here, we were looking at the tanker traffic, all the damage that would do, like even the traffic itself, the wearing down of the shoreline itself from that traffic, disruption to marine life, the migration patterns. We looked at all of that. And that's why there was a 10-year moratorium. Well, according to what the pattern of government is, they'll go against it and they'll say, well, we can mitigate. How could you mitigate something that can never, ever be fixed again? Once it's gone, it's gone. Think about the cultures and the people that rely on the oceans, the seafood. What are you going to do? Are you going to give them, oh, for 5 years, we'll provide you with seafood, and then after that, you're on your own? We've gone through that before, where they've destroyed things. That, oh, we'll provide something for a very limited amount of time, or if you look after something, it'll last forever. So that pipeline traffic itself, they won't know the true damage until after it's gone. And unfortunately, the human doesn't miss anything until it's gone. We are not very good at thinking ahead. Ourselves, we are. We can see into the future. But when you don't have somebody that is actually willing to stand up against things that are wrong and raise their voice, it will happen, unfortunately.
Rather than caving into industry, what could we do? What your nation, all across BC, all across Canada, the world, rather than cave into these economic threats? Yes, let's push, fossil fuel expansion. What can we do?
Number one, educate yourself and know the difference between a lie and a truth. And look at patterns. What is their pattern? What have they done before? What is their ultimate goal? If it's only a dollar bill, you know it's a lie. The biggest thing I can say to anybody, use your voice, be there. Things happen and you have a right to use your voice, stand up, be there. Go out and enjoy the land, the air, the water. Reinvigorate yourself. Let your soul know that it is there, it can be rebuilt. They're going to beat you down like crazy. What we've gone through, we know is not the end of it. But we rebuild ourselves by being right here. We rebuild ourselves by surrounding ourselves with people that think the same as us. When you get like-minded and like-hearted people together, you can make a hell of a difference. Because you're not just reading off a script. You're following your heart. You're knowing what you're going to do. The human part of having a soul is relying and knowing what your surroundings are. And if it's all gray and being squashed, you're not a human. You lost that part of you. So open yourself up. Use your voice. Know that there are people that will stand with you throughout this world. And know you're doing the right thing. Do your very best because you're doing it for that next generation. You have to do that.
You sound like you have a lot of hope.
I have a lot of hope in the next generation, I'll tell you that. I meet a lot of young people. I see the education that is there. I see their commitment to it. And they are getting themselves so well-rounded in what's happening on the entire planet, not just in their world, the entire world. And they're communicating and they're sharing experiences. Because then that's how you know what your goal is going to be. We always go to the very basics. If we don't go back to our core of what generation after generation of our people did, we're just going to get scattered. We're going to go down rabbit trails and get lost. But if you got that core there and you work from there, you have that ability to lift people up and make sure that they're doing the right thing too.
I like that. Last question. What is your relationship, yourself specifically, to your land? Do you have like a memory you could share with us, like of growing up? You know, maybe you're out fishing, maybe you're out hunting, maybe, you know, something, maybe with your granny.
I have so many great memories, and that's what I want for the next generation. I can go anywhere on our territory and I have memories. I can think about people. I love thinking about my grandmother when she was Chief Na'Moks. When I was small, I didn't know she was Chief Na'Moks. She was just Granny. But she made sure that we were well looked after. She made sure that we knew there's fishing holes right here that belong to Tayi, and that we have every right to look after. We have a right to bring our children for a walk and build those memories. And know that when you have the Royal Canadian Mounted Police or security out there trying to threaten you, that they are nothing. The power is the land, the air, the water, your thought process, your heart, your soul. I can't list one. There are thousands. I've had a very good life here. Sure, it's been hard. But you know, if you can't face challenges in your life and overcome them, they win. Don't even ask me who they are. They think they are it. We are the ones that decide. We are the ones that have a future. And we are the ones that need to use our voices and make sure that we work together.
What would you like, sorry, one more question. What would you like to see other people do to help amplify your voice, help amplify maybe the Gitxsan voices? You know, they're going to be fighting PRGT soon, or so we think, but you know, it looks that way. What can we do? Because a lot of people are feeling hopeless. A lot of people are worried. They think, you know, signing, you know, actions. They're like, I've signed so many. What else can I do? You know, what can we do to help?
Well, don't let fear dictate your life, because it's those dictators that are out there that are instigating that fear. And don't forget to celebrate. Every small win, get together and celebrate. Be human. Because if you let them control you, you're letting them control your children. Give your children that their voice, that heart, that hope. Sure, it's easy to feel hopeless. And it's hard to do what we're doing. But if we don't do it, who will do it? If we can't stand up and tell them that they're doing wrong, who will do it? We can't rely on somebody else to do it. If we sit back and allow somebody else to do it, how do you know they don't have an underlying agenda that doesn't align with you? It is you yourself that can choose that. It is you yourself that can use the words, and it's you yourself that can be there for each other. Is it hard? Definitely. But it is so rewarding. It'll put a smile on your face, and it'll definitely do your heart well.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Don't give up. The very fact that that's how they win is giving up. And like I said, human emotions are human emotions. But don't let your core values be swayed, and never ever sell out. If you sell out, you sold out your parents, your grandparents. If you sell out, you have no heart. If you sell out, you have no future. Just remember that every human has power. Use that power in the right way.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.